The first rule in grip sport is you tell everyone about grip sport.
Crushing, pinch grip, thick bar, wrists.
If the best guy in the world can't lift 100 pounds on it, I don't give a shit about it.
All right, welcome back to the Grip Show. We have a rankings episode this time. So what I'm going to be doing is pretty much allowing Eric to speak on the North American rankings. So this won't necessarily be all international lifters. This is just going to cover the North American rankings. But Eric has been doing this, whether it's for grip sport. Eric, you've probably done this in arm wrestling too. Just a lot of historical stuff, rankings for arm wrestling, stuff like that. So Eric is no stranger to kind of compiling these lists and these rankings, but for anybody that's seen them, maybe doesn't know how they're weighted or how the decisions are made, Eric's going to give us a little bit of insight to that process and kind of break things down. And we're going to kind of cover these classes and cover the rankings as they stand right now. So with that being said, Eric, do you want to, I guess, kind of just give a quick summary of the rankings and just kind of let people know when they started and kind of how you came up with that system per se?
Sure. Yeah. So as you mentioned, I actually managed North American arm wrestling rankings from about 2005 to 2010 or 11. And this is something that I did just because it didn't really exist. It wasn't being done in the sport. And I thought, there really should be rankings. We have all the contest results. Mm-hmm. And I guess people know who the top players are. But I thought it'd be interesting to go through the results and really analyze them and see what I think would be basically the arm wrestling rankings where, let's say if there's top 10 and if they were all in the same tournament on the same day in the same class, who would be most likely to come out on top? And he would have the number one rank, Mm-hmm. Number two would be the second likeliest person to finish at the top. So that's sort of the rationale I was using it. So everything in arm wrestling was looking at, okay, who did they beat? Who did they lose to? Which tournaments? So there's a lot of those things I was looking at. For grip, which I've been actively competing since about 2010, there weren't any really rankings before very recently. I know there was a bit of there were some attempts like in the early days of the sport, but nothing really was done. So a couple of years ago, I decided to have fun and start, because I have an interest in this, I started posting my top 10 overall North American rankings, just the top 10 overall of my active competitors on the grip board. And, these aren't like GSI rankings, or they aren't arm lifting. They're not sanctioned anyway. It's really just my opinion. Mm-hmm. But I do think I'm well positioned to sort of attempt to do this. So I think people sort of enjoyed seeing that. I enjoyed doing them, and I updated it every once in a while. And then for fun, I decided to go back and look through the whole history of grip contests back to 2002. And I actually, a couple of years ago, developed a sort of like rankings for each year. And you can actually find that thread somewhere. It's buried in the grip board somewhere. Mm-hmm. But, for each year, who are sort of the top 10. And then more recently, I decided, you know what? I think I want to start doing this, but not just overall. I want to do it sort of by weight class because the sport is growing. And really the intention is to let people know sort of who the top active competitors are, but also as a source of motivation. But really that's what it's designed to be. Sort of give attention and give, highlight who the top competitors are, but also motivate people to, I want to get ranked, or I want to climb the list. Mm-hmm. And they can sort of see who's ranked ahead, and you can take a look at their numbers. Okay, what do I sort of need to do to climb? So the first thing I want to say is don't take this as gospel. This is my opinion based on my analysis of results. I do see all of the GSI results because I enter almost all of them into the database. So I see any GSI sanctioned contest results, and I also pay close attention to all of the Arm Lifting USA results. So if it's posted on either Arm Lifting USA or it's a GSI sanctioned contest, I see all of those contest results. If I'm aware of other contests, even if they're unsanctioned, I will consider them if it's at least a two or three event contest. If it's just one event, it's sort of hard to gauge what does that mean. Okay, somebody's really good at one thing. So obviously there's a lot of challenges because not every contest features the same implements. Some people compete once a year, others compete 10 times a year. So obviously there's a lot more information on the more active competitors. But I'm sort of doing my best, basically. If they competed once, but they were really strong in thick bar and they were really strong in pinch, well, they're probably, overall, they're probably of a decent strength. So there's some guessing. And it is a challenge because, like I said, some people don't compete that often and haven't competed on a bunch of events. But
yeah,
my criteria is you have to have been active. You have to have competed in a grip contest in the past 12 months. So if you have not competed since November last year or October last year, you would fall off.
Yeah.
And that's just to keep it fair because people want to climb. So if they can never pass someone and they're not active, I feel it's not really fair.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of more recent performances count for more. Bigger contests can sometimes count for more. So there's a lot of things I'm trying to consider as I'm doing these rankings. But I just want people to take them for what they are. It's an attempt to give it, highlight good performances and be a source of motivation. Really, that's what it comes down to. So that's sort of, I enjoy doing it. I like looking at the results and trying to figure things out. And I just want people to understand I'm not saying these are perfect, and you could probably argue the exact positioning in the rankings, but that's part of the fun of the debate. So I would love people to sort of, when I post an update, I'd love people to sort of say, well, I think they should be ranked 6, not 8. This is why. And I think that conversation is fun.
Yeah.
So that's really the history of the rankings. I am updating them after every contest that I see the results. If a change is warranted, like if it's competitive, all of a sudden, wow, they're outlifting this guy. So they should probably move up, or they should move down, or this is a new guy, but he just won the contest. He should be ranked in his class. And more recently, what I did is I think I added a few classes. I think I used to have just an overall women's. Now I have 3 weight classes for women's because that's what the women's side is really growing fast. And I also wanted to mirror the classes that I'm offering at the North American Championships next year, because I'm sort of using that as a qualifier. Basically, if you're ranked top 8 in your weight class at any point between now and the contest, you're qualified. There's other ways to qualify, like winning a contest or winning your class, or that's all posted on the report. But I wanted to add this element because I feel I want to reward people who are competing. So I'm not as much a fan of qualifying via video. I would prefer that the people who are actually showing up to contests and competing, getting results on the board, getting possibly ranked. So that's why I chose to do that. So that's sort of the quick and dirty of how I do it, why I do it. But if you have any questions at this point, just let me know and I can maybe try and clarify anything.
No, for me, it makes total sense. And I think it's good for the listeners just to kind of understand, how long this has been going on, or, kind of roughly what you're trying to do with it. And yeah, I mean, we can we'll give a basic rundown of some of these different classes and everything like that. I think it's good that you mentioned, it's not necessarily a exact science, there is a little bit of guessing. And I think that the thing that I would like to point out is that these episodes, I mean, for what it is in our, I guess, smaller sport, we'll say for now, the show does get pretty good viewership from at least our own community. I'm not saying there's a bunch of crossover. So if you guys are listening in or you're watching this, you don't have to wait for Eric to put it up on the website or anything. Like, if this is up on YouTube, drop down in the comments and give us your top 10.
Right.
Say,
absolutely.
Hey, I think so-and-so should be above this guy, or that guy shouldn't be in, 5th place. He should be farther down. It's nothing personal. It's just discussion. It's just kind of a little bit of debate. Right. And it's really, just for fun. I mean, like you said, to motivate people and for fun. I think it's interesting to kind of analyze and just break things down, because you might think somebody ranks a certain spot and then someone else has a really compelling argument and you're like, oh, I don't know about that. I could see why he would go with that order. So I think the discussion is better, but the discussion only works if people join in and, make those comments and stuff like that. So if anybody listens in and hears us kind of give the rundown of what the current status is right now, I would like to see as many people as possible giving us your own rankings, even if it's for your own weight class.
Yeah,
or even
absolutely.
if whatever it is that you feel like you're familiar enough with to comment on or discuss. So that's all I wanted to throw out there, was just maybe some more participation in the comments for this, because it is a good topic.
The only thing the other thing I want to mention is I do North America because I feel like I have a pretty good grasp and I see those results. I would love to do a world ranking.
Yeah.
But there's just too much going on in Europe, especially, and in Russia and all those different countries. I don't have immediate access to this. So it's a lot more challenging to do a world rankings, because don't get me wrong, there's a lot of people internationally who would be placed very high on these lists if they were world rankings. But I think I do have a very good grasp of what's going on in Canada and the US. So that's why it's North America. It's not because I want to sort of have, it's a smaller pond so we can get higher up on the list. It's not about that. It's just ease of building them. That's why.
Well, it's like closer to home. I mean, it's like kind of like your home base. So I mean, you're here, you're seeing the results, you're competing in a lot of the competitions, you're at a lot of the major venues. So it's much easier for you to track that and kind of keep tabs on it. So I don't think I hope nobody's thinking that like, oh, you're limiting it to this continent because you want to rank guys higher. It's like, no, that's not the case. It's literally just easier to track. It's like,
I would love to see someone from Europe create European rankings, because then it could be fun, because then it could be, very interesting. So
no, yeah. I think that's the thing that, like I said, without going on too long about it, is that it just takes somebody to kind of get the ball rolling. And then sometimes things like that can jump off. So maybe you're kind of the pioneer that jumps off the rankings for, over here. And then maybe that kind of sparks a fire in somebody else to start, doing a rankings of their own. And then next thing you know, you have everybody kind of ranking their own areas, maybe, or thinking about it, at least knowing that it could be a thing. So I think it's great. So did you have a particular spot that you would like to start at, or anywhere that you think would make sense just to cover the current rankings?
Any order you want, I'm fine with any of it.
Okay. I feel like we could save the overall for the, like, if let's say we start with the women's, we could start with the lightest class of the women's and then just work up to overall. I feel like if we start with overall and then go backwards, it's a slightly out of order. It's kind of like from the smallest to the overall makes more sense to me. But yeah, so we could start with the women's 63 kg, and looks like about half the list, I'm assuming, is like Ontario. So these might be, am I right on that?
Yeah. So what happened is,
a
couple of local climbers discovered the sport. Andrew, and he not only started Nemesis Grips, but now they're hosting women's only grip contests, and they've already held I think 3 of them this year. And now most of them competed in King Kong. Anyway, they're all climbers. They're all super strong, and they're mostly lightweights, but not all. So about half this list are local climbers. But that just goes to show you the potential there is out there. Because I'm not thinking auto climbers are the strongest in the world. I'm saying climbers, period. There are strong ones everywhere. So the more we discover them, expose them to the sport, the more this list will become varied. But
Okay, and then I don't want to mess up any names here. Are you familiar with the number 1 ranked?
So I haven't met her yet. She is local. She's competed in a few contests, and she is coming to North American Championships. So Shaolin Rose, and based on the results, I have her at number 1 at that weight. Now Tammy's could make this weight. I think she's just typically being a little slightly heavier, like 64, 65. So Tammy's in the next weight up. But she could, if she was motivated, she could do 63, and Tammy would be the number 1 at 63, right? If she weighed that, but she hasn't been. She's been mostly doing Arm Lifting USA 70 kg, and she did 72 in King Kong. So that's one of the challenges I have, is people move around weight classes. So I generally try to rank people in the lowest weight class where they sort of semi-regularly compete. So there's a bunch of us like Luke Raymond. I still have him in 93, although he just did 105 at King Kong. You were 93 a year ago, and now you're in the heavyweight. So it's if I sort of get a sense that they're sort of moved up a weight class or moved down for a while, then I will move them. Like Jed last year, I think he did the 105 in King Kong. but that was like the only contest he did it that way. So I had a few months ago, I just moved him to the 120 because that's, I don't want to have a spot that's just stuck there because they're not competing at that weight, and no one's. So it's hard to beat someone if they're not competing at that weight. That's what I'm trying to say.
No, absolutely.
Yeah. So
second,
yeah,
I was gonna say number 2, we have Jessie Shockley.
Yeah, so she's
she's
one of I think, is it one of Tammy's friends? I think she was at
she was just at Worlds.
At Worlds, yeah.
Yep.
By the way, these I don't think we said it, but I host these rankings on my CanadaGripSport.com website. So I think it's CanadaGripSport.com/rankings. I think that's the website.
Yeah, and even if somebody wanted just to Google it, I think if you just type in like Canada Grip Sport rankings or something generic in Google, you'll find the site and you can go and kind of look at it from there. So
and you'll see on the rankings that I identify the province or the state where someone lives if I'm aware of it. If I'm unsure, I don't typically guess. But if somebody wants to fill me in on where these people live, I can easily add their state or province.
Yeah. And then, like I said, if we just go down, like I said, we don't have to go like super slow through everything. We could kind of just read off, if you wanted, but like I said, some of these I just do not want to butcher the names because I know it's one of those things like, oh, just do the homework and learn how to pronounce names. It's like, man, trying to pronounce some random names sometimes, or going through, a list of 100 people. It's like, you're just gonna mess them up sometimes. But like, I do know Grace Van Hoy at least because she was just also competing in Worlds, and she'd be in the 3rd spot, with a good performance at Worlds. So I mean, that's another reason why probably closer up to the top there on the list. Actively competing in bigger competitions.
One thing I'll say is I don't rank every weight class. So you'll see these are GSI classes that I have ranked.
Yep.
The GSI does have a 47 kg, 52 kg, 57 kg women's classes. The numbers aren't there right now. There aren't even 10 active competitors at some of these weights. So I grouped them in the 63. This is not to say that eventually, as the sport grows, I may add a lower weight class. So some of the competitors who would be maybe even 1 or 2 in the 50s, in the 47, they might not be top 10 in the 63. So I just want to let people know that that's the only reason. We just don't have the numbers yet to create meaningful lists. So
Okay, and then like 4, 5, and 6 for that class is a lot of Ontario again.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing that's part of that same crew, or
it is.
Same set of lifters. And like I said, I do not want to mess up the name. Would it be Amina, or am I?
I think it's Amina. Yeah.
Amina Alec.
I think so.
Okay, I just making sure for 4th place. Going down.
Now these people who train and compete, or not, they might not train together, but they compete together. So it's very easy for me to make the rankings because they all did the same contest, and I can see them. So that's very easy. So among those ones, I'm pretty confident. It's when I have to add in people from different contests who lifted different things. There's some guesswork involved. So
and then as we go down, I'm guessing it would be Tani Weber.
Yep.
Is that accurate? Okay.
But so, I mean, I don't know any more than you. I haven't
okay. Yeah. Like I said, if I mess up anybody's name, I apologize. But Jen Stazuski, I assume that's how that would be pronounced. So that would be our 4, 5, and 6 there. And like you said, it's easier to kind of figure out where people are at if they're all competing together. You can just, the data's right there. Then Kim Van Wagner, 7th, Amy Stone, 8th, Anna Wilkins from Virginia in 9th, and then Megan Hagedorn from Colorado in 10th to fill out the 63 kg rankings. Do you have anything to add there?
I would just say that not just for this class, but any class. I think it's easier to sort of identify the top 2 or 3. And I think most people would agree for the top 2 or 3, maybe not the order, but when you get to 7, 8, 9, 10, there's a lot more debate as to what the order is. It's the further down the list, the more debate there is.
I can definitely see that. Anything to add on those names, Eric? Any
No, I
Anything
just say
pretty
that
good?
a year ago I wouldn't have been able to create this list. So I'm happy that more people are competing. That's all I
Yeah.
want to say for the women's lightweights.
Okay. And then the next class that we have tracked here is the women's 84 kg. Now, this would be 84 and under. So, like
Right.
you said, there might be other classes that have kind of merged or been grouped together here. So it's
Right. So this includes for GSI, this includes the 72 and the 84. So Tammy just won King Kong in her class King. She also just won the 70 kg at Worlds in Orlando. And
Yes.
Haley, I believe, won the 80 kg in Orlando. So,
Yep.
But Tammy outlifted her. So I think they're of this bunch, I think they're the clear top two.
Yeah. I would agree
Christina
with you on
Bagman,
that.
Christina Bagman has been also very strong. Ashley, this is a tough one. Ashley, she just kept gaining weight because she was pregnant, but she kept competing. So she wasn't actually she wasn't actually in the 84 in King Kong. She was in the 100. But I felt, she's not going to be in the 100 for very long. So that's why she's in the 84 for now. And,
That makes sense. And then that was fourth place for Ashley Muncie there. Going down, Sarah Saffel from Ohio.
Yep.
And then sixth, Sarah Toledo, Ontario.
Yep.
Michelle Collins, and I'm assuming Alberta.
Yeah, and she was at Worlds. She had a good day too. Yeah.
Yep. And then I don't know, I might let you take over the other half of the last portion there.
Yeah, so
just to put some pressure on you.
Yeah, Corinne won the Masters King Kong.
Okay.
And she very strong. She's also a climber. Very strong. Like I think she's gonna climb the rankings. Jessica's also from Alberta and Maddie's from Saskatchewan. Yep. So a lot of half American, half Canadian on this list.
Yeah, I think that's what we see with a lot of these lists as well too, is that it's pretty balanced. It's not like you have like a takeover by one side or the other. There's pretty equal amounts of, I guess you could say, like star athletes or the big names, you know what I mean? And it's pretty balanced when we start going down the list. So that kind of rounds out the 84 kg. And like I think you said, like right now, I would say you'd have to say that Tammy would be number one based on the performances, and then Haley Gow probably right behind her, even though they're just slightly different classes on things. But yeah, based on the numbers and everything. And then, like you said, some of the other stuff as it drops off, maybe a little tougher to debate. But I think the rankings there look good. Like I said, for what it's worth, I mean, you said it's your opinion on the rankings. There's some of these that I don't know. I mean, I might disagree with one or something, but I think it's just my opinion as well. So it's
I think I would have a hard time believing that somebody would see somebody on this list and they're like, oh no, they should be 30th, or somebody that I haven't included that somebody thinks is like the top two, right? I think I've captured the active competitors. If you feel somebody's left out, like if you think there's a clear omission, let me know. Not you, but just anyone watching. But I think this is pretty representative of the current landscape. This is not an all-time. This is definitely not an all-time list, right? An all-time list would look quite different. This is current. Yeah.
Yeah. And like you said, it's within that active window. So if you're not actively competing within that 12-month window,
right?
The second you drop off into that 13th month, you're not active, then your name's pulled off the list. Because like you said, if it was an all-time list, this isn't.
I don't think that's fair. If you consider yourself a grip athlete, a competitor, it's not hard to find one contest a year. You should be able to find if this is your sport or this is a sport you practice. So, and it's not easy to get back on the rankings. Just show up and do well. So if you're off temporarily, it's not like you're off forever. So, yeah.
Now, the women's 84 plus kg.
Yeah.
And Sarah Chapello at number one out of Wyoming.
Yeah.
And I just interviewed Sarah recently for the Grip Show. So Sarah's full interview's out. If anybody wants to watch that, she's coming off a couple really solid performances at King Kong and at Worlds. So be sure to check her interview out and hear some backstory on her getting into grip and things like that, and kind of her journey and training and how she's gotten to where she's at today. But I just figured I'd throw that out there since I did just put out an episode basically within the last day or two.
Right.
So yeah, worth noting there. And then we have Gabby Dixon, which a lot of people know from the strongman side of things.
Right.
At least that's where most people would probably associate that name, is from, kind of outside of our sport. But she did do the Arnold. And do you remember the exact placings for all of that?
Here's what I want to mention about this is Gabby won the Arnold. She beat Sarah at the Arnold.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
Now, why is she not ranked number one? Well, the Arnold was just 3 events. It was extremely close between the two. And I just have that was the only contest Gabby did. Sarah's done so many contests in so many different lifts. I think she just has so much more an established record that even though she may have lost, in an axle against Gabby, who was a phenomenal deadlifter as well. I didn't think it was enough to justify ranking Gabby ahead of Sarah. Now, I did watch the Sarah interview that you did, and I thought it was very cool that she mentioned that Gabby is also going to is it Finland or Sweden for the
Sweden, yeah.
Sweden. So you know what? Even though it's not on North American soil, if it's North American competitors, I count it. So if Gabby beats Sarah there, then I might have to do some adjustments. But if Sarah beats Gabby, then it's sort of leave it as is. You know what I mean? So I'm happy that we're going to have that extra bit of information coming up soon. Yeah.
No, I think that's good to bring up. And it also, even though we don't have a ranking system for foreign competitors, outside North America, you still get to kind of see some of the, Europe's best lifters or, wherever, going against some of the higher ranked people on the North American lists. So it kind of gives us some feedback as to that. Like, oh, this is, so-and-so's country's best lifter, because they're going, out of country, or they're going global to compete. And so even though we don't have a ranking system for them, or they're not included in these rankings, we can kind of say like, oh man, if somebody were to beat Gabby and Sarah, we could just be like, wow, that's a strong lifter. Or if, Sarah and Gabby go and hold their own against everybody across the world and they're right up there at the top, then we can say, okay, they definitely, there's no doubt they're at the top 2, not even in North America, but maybe beyond. So, really, really glad you brought that up. And third place would be Becky Houston.
Yeah, so she's done King Kong out of the Joel Dirks venue, and she's strong. She gets good results and pretty consistent. So based on my analysis of what she's lifted, I have her ranked 3rd.
Okay, and then like I said, no stranger to some of these rankings. Melissa Dingy from Ohio.
Yeah.
So Melissa's done. She competes often. As does her husband Jason. So just always competing and always in the mix with kind of being up there. So no surprise there. I'm going into 5th. Kendra Panko. I'm hoping I'm saying that right.
I think the last time she competed, I'll have to check, but was Worlds last year, which was in December. So World Armlifting Worlds. So she might fall off soon if she doesn't compete. So that's just an example of someone who might be falling off soon.
Yeah. And then if we go down the list, 2 more Canadian lifters.
Yeah. So Jolianne and Kathy, Kathy trains with me, and Jolianne comes to all my contests. So I'm familiar with them, and they go neck and neck. But lately, Jolianne is edging out Kathy just slightly.
Okay. And then Hannah was also just at
Worlds,
the Worlds, So like I said, a lot of these people were just competing. This list is about active people, but as we're going down, I'm like, we just lifted with some of these people, literally, a week or 2 ago, whatever. So it's just good to see, like I said, the names actually popping up, like you said. If you're being active and you're competing and you're placing well, you'll find yourself on these lists.
Yeah.
So Hannah would be in 8th, and then as we go down, Tracy Halliday, and 10th place Heather McDonald.
Right.
And then I guess that would round up the, the 84 plus.
Yeah.
Now, this is where it might get interesting because if we cover the women's overall, this is when we merge all of those weight classes together. And some things are going to stay the same and kind of in the same order. Then some things kind of get shuffled a little bit, like you said, towards the bottom, maybe 6 through 10. It could be up for debate. But if we go down the list of the women's overall, we have Sarah Chapello at 1, second, Gabby Dixon, third, Tammy McClure, fourth, Haley Gow, fifth, Christina Bangma, sixth, Becky Houston, seventh, Ashley Muncie, 8, Melissa Dingy, 9, Kendra Panko, and 10, Jolianne Vinette. And like I said, I hope I'm not messing that up by saying Vinette. I'm hopeful.
No, that's right.
Okay,
That's right.
just double checking. But yeah, that would be that would be the 10 there. Like I said, that's kind of merging those classes. So you can see that like Tammy and Haley are third and fourth there, but they were 1 and 2 for the slightly lighter weight class. It's just that Sarah and Gabby are kind of taking that overall. And then you have, a lot of the other lifters that have kind of been sprinkled throughout the classes, but are still up there, kind of just trailing behind that 5 through 10 spot. Yeah. Do you have anything to add for women's overall?
Well, obviously, it's going to be harder for a 63 kg women to rank in the top 10 overall. We're going to see the same thing with the men. There aren't.
Yeah.
I mean, there are some freaks out there, but to finish top 10 overall at a significantly lower body weight, it's going to be tough. Yeah.
Usually the bigger, stronger people are going to be pulling the whatever. That's just kind of how it is across the board. It's not always the case, but
yeah,
pretty consistent. And then if we kind of is there anything else you wanted to mention other than that for the women's overall rankings, Eric?
Just that I fully expect these rankings to change dramatically, as we go forward, as more people come up, discover the sport, because we're discovering tons of new people, tons of new strong people. So I don't think that I think I'd be surprised if somebody dethrones Sarah or Tammy anytime soon. But I think their spots at the top, or at least near the top of the rankings, will probably last for a while if they keep competing. But I think if just to get on the rankings, I think there will be a lot of changes going forward.
Okay, and I'm getting kind of some of this stuff organized just because I know the order we're going to go in. So if we drop back down now to the men's 74 kg.
Yeah.
This is interesting because we kind of have some I guess more experienced people. I guess we would say Yves Gravel would be more experienced, but then like 2 you have Ben Galper, and Ben Galper literally just like kind of burst on the scene. So we kind of have a household name that's been around for a while. And then we have kind of like you mentioned with some of these lists changing, kind of that like new emerging lifter that's like, hey, okay, someone's been discovered, like they're here now, now they're lifting. So, so that would be 1 and 2 right there. And then another one we spoke of recently as well, doing the, not me and you, me and Ricardo did the recap for Worlds, but talking about Jesse Hagedorn. But he had done well. We also mentioned him in King Kong because me and you did the King Kong recap. Right. So he had won that for the second year in a row. But he was at a lighter weight class.
Exactly. Yeah. That's what I would say is this is interesting because Yves' normal weight class is 66. So the lowest men's class that I'm ranking is 74. Yves would normally be 66. Ben is 74 and Jesse would be 59. So the top 3 guys are actually in different GSI weight classes, but they're just so dominant within the respective classes that they happen to be the top 3 at 74.
No, that makes total sense to me. And like I said, I definitely agree with that, especially the way the competitions have been kind of unfolding here recently. So yeah, good on the top 3 there for 74. And then are you familiar?
Yeah, Gabriel, he did his first contest at my King Kong. That was his very first contest. He's a climber as well. So based on his results, I have him 4th in 74, and he's only done 1 contest. But like the 3 before him, they're all climbers, and they're these lower weights. Clearly, the common theme that we're seeing is if you're a strong climber, you're probably going to be a decent grip sport athlete. So
yeah.
Yeah.
And then fifth place, Brian Murphy,
Yeah.
based out of Missouri. Sixth place, Anthony Clarino.
Yeah.
And
He's
I've had a
been
chance
competing.
I've had a chance to compete with Brian and Anthony both, actually.
Right.
Just different, whether it be in nationals, whether some other type of event. So I've had a chance to at least lift with both those guys. Really, I'm sure we could probably both say that across the all these lists. We've encountered a lot of these names, or we've lifted with a lot of these people, or they're just, like I said, names that maybe not everybody knows, but for the most part, if you're actively competing, you'll eventually run into these people, or maybe you've lifted with some of these names and you don't even realize it.
Right.
But yeah, that would be fifth and sixth there.
Maxim.
Yep.
So he's the 15-year-old guy who lives near me.
Yes.
He's 15 years old. Once again, a climber, and he just got second at Worlds in the 80 kg. So 15 years old. If he stays at it, he's just going to climb. So very impressive.
Yeah, I would say it would be hard to imagine him just not gaining strength and just kind of reaching his full potential over the next, however many years, assuming he sticks with it.
Right.
I see no reason why he couldn't be shaking up some of the rankings and be right up there with those other guys in the top three. Like I said, given some time,
right,
obviously,
right.
But like I said, 15 to, some of these guys are probably, I don't know how old some of them are, but I'm saying, we're talking about some guys, might be like late 20s, 30s, maybe even pushing 40, so you got a 15-year-old kid. Yeah. It just, some of this stuff just takes time to develop. And I think with some time, he could be as good as anybody.
Yeah.
Michael Gonzalez in 8th for 74. 9th, Matt Cannon, which people might be familiar with from Cannon Powerworks. So if you have a gripper and you've had it rated, it was probably Matt Cannon that rated the gripper, so I'm sure most people would connect the dots on that one, but yeah, just worth a mention. What competition did Matt compete in recently?
King Kong.
Was that like a King Kong? Okay. I was just double checking. I figured it was probably King Kong.
Yeah, because he doesn't compete very often, but he did compete and he had a decent result, and that's where I had him ranked. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I figured it was King Kong. I just wanted to double check. And then Mike McMillan in 10th place to kind of round out that weight class.
Yeah.
But yeah, overall, like I said, I'm not even trying to critique the lists myself. I'm just kind of taking them in. But yeah, I don't really see anything that stands out to me as crazy at 74. As far as being out of place, whoa,
there's one. I had updated that list, the version you've had, but I've actually updated it since.
Okay.
Because I updated it without seeing the full results from the Worlds in Orlando. So I had missed one guy in the lightweights in Orlando. The 20-year-old Jacob Asfari?
Yes, yeah.
His result, I've adjusted the ranking, so I have him 9 or 10 right now. So he may have pushed one of the people off, but his results were overall a little better than a couple of guys. So that's a slight that sometimes I'm so eager to update the rankings that I might miss something because I haven't seen the full final results, and then when I see them, I make some quick adjustments.
Okay, and then if we bounce up to men's 83 kg, and this is where it gets kind of interesting because Carter kind of is another one that kind of recently few competitions under his belt, but performed extremely well.
Yeah, so I had him ranked number 1 at 83 when I first did publish these rankings earlier this spring, because he won he didn't win nationals in Canada, but his results at nationals in 2022 were so impressive that in my opinion, he was already ranked number 83. He fell off the rankings due to inactivity for a few months, but then he did King Kong and he got 3rd overall.
Yeah.
So right away he was back at the top.
Okay.
You know.
Yeah, and that would be with a lot of these people. I say a lot of these people competing in the same competition. Probably, I think a lot of these people on this list probably, at least half of them probably did King Kong.
Right.
So, I mean, if he's, for what it's worth.
And obviously there are some limitations in using a multi-venue contest for these rankings. If they were all together in one venue competing, then it would be great. So,
yeah. But
I know that there are differences across venues, across, humidity level. There's always differences in a multi-venue, but in the absence of, there are limits to what I'm able to do. So I'm still obviously counting all these results, but I wonder, if everyone is always competing in the same venue, would it be exactly like this? Probably not. So I just want to say that I'm aware that a multi-venue contest isn't perfect for comparing across venues.
Yeah. Now, this is where it gets interesting for me, I think. You can give me your 2 cents on it, but when we go 2 through 5, we have I'm just going to go 2, 3, 4, 5. We have Mike Rogowski, Will Reed, Dave Christopher, and Vinny Reveles.
Right.
Now, this is interesting to me because I personally think, depending on event selection, any one of these guys could beat the other, depending on the events. I think if you throw grippers in the mix with maybe some form of narrow pinch, Vinny at number 5 can be a problem for somebody up higher. If you were to throw Axel in there, I think Will Reed and Dave Christopher are going to give the other guys problems. This is one that really becomes event dependent for me. But yeah, I'm not disputing the rankings. I'm just noting that all of these guys are pretty well rounded and have some specialties of their own. And you got to base it on what they're doing in their performances. But really, I mean, 2 through 5, it's one of those things when we see like small point spreads when it comes to a competition. It's like on any given day, like you said, in the same room, depending on the shakeup of events. Those guys are all strong and all perform very well. And like I said, and that's just, I haven't had a chance to lift with Will Reed, so I've seen the lifts he does. I haven't lifted with him in person, but I've seen from afar the lifts he does. But I've lifted with the other 3 in person, so I've had a chance to kind of compete side by side and kind of see what they lift, right there in 3D basically. So that's why I'm just kind of commenting on that being kind of an interesting matchup, or that little block of people. And then we're going real heavy on the Canadian lifters to finish out 6 through 10. All Canada.
A couple of Western guys that I met. Some of them I've met a few times, but Steve is becoming very active in Alberta, and my guy, he's only competed once that I'm aware of last spring, but another climber did very well. And then these last 3 guys are local to me, and they're also very close to each other in terms of performances, but. Based on my analysis, I had Alex ahead of those 3.
Okay. So anything else to add for 83? That pretty much wraps that up?
Yeah, that wraps it up.
Now we go to 93. Now, Eric, you put yourself first.
I did.
You sure that's accurate? No, I'm just messing with you. I'm just
debatable. It's debatable for sure.
Wait a minute. The guy that made this list is at the top. What happened? No, I'm joking. Like I said, it's definitely well earned. Like I said,
just this year, it's been recently. It's been. It was Lucas at one point. It was Devin Lee at one point. It was me at one point. Tim, among us, Tim had the best result in King Kong. And then the week before, Vinny beat him in Maine. So it really. Once again, it depends on the events. And Tim had a great day with the jug, and I forget what his other good result was, but on the balance of all things, and the fact that I just won Worlds, so I think on a wider array of events, I think I'm ranked slightly ahead
No, like I said, I would agree. I just had to mess with you a little bit there.
Yeah, no. Obviously, I know that it can look weird.
Well, but it would be one thing if you weren't winning like almost every competition you were in, but when you back it up, it's like, the stats are the stats. So we have you at the men's 93 top spot, followed by Tim Butler, who had that really good performance at King Kong, like you mentioned. Luke Raymond, who's always right there, whether it be 93 or even at 105 and weight classes above. Luke is, I mean, pretty much since he's been in grip, he's almost been one of the top guys.
I really feel Luke and I are so close. It really comes down to the events, right? Like I think we're extremely close in contests.
Then fourth place, Devin Lee Brown out of Florida. So, I mean, he just had a couple decent performances with like maybe the King Kong format wasn't as suitable to him, or maybe those events weren't as good. But then
he's normally a consistent top 3 or 4 finisher in King Kong. I think he just really suffered on one event. The pinch block, he told me he went from 60 to 80 and failed at 80. Too big a jump. And you're leaving a lot of points. You're adding a lot of points when you're getting a 60 on the finish block. You know what I mean? So I feel that King Kong this year was not very representative of what he can do.
Well, no, because we usually see him at the top of like every competition. So I was just saying, like, with him at fourth, like let's say he had like a spot on performance for King Kong. It's just debatable. I mean, he's fourth, but like he's right there at the top with anybody, given any certain event lineup. Like we just saw him, which this would be a good example because I mean, you guys were lifting same time. We all were lifting at Worlds. It's 3 events, but I believe you guys tied on reps for the Raptor medley.
Yeah.
And then he would have got you on the vertical bar. But then you would have gotten him on the Saxon. So it just goes to show how close this is. And even though Devin Lee's in the fourth spot due to, maybe some other placements, he's this list is really stacked, honestly, all the way from top to bottom. I mean, it really gets crazy. So just because somebody is farther down the list, like at any given time with the right events, man, almost anybody could jump up and surprise you. So going to fifth, Clint Ziegler, who's been very consistent at 93. He has in the past competed a little bit lighter, but he's kind of moved up to 93 as of late. But super tough and always seems to put it together for King Kong or nationals. He always seems to kind of put it together for those, I'll say bigger competitions. He's not somebody that competes a ton, but when he does compete and kind of, I guess marks down those 3 or 4 competitions that he's really going after, he seems to always kind of deliver. And then 6th place behind him, maybe a little less active here, but Yvonne Shook out of Illinois.
He competed at the Arnold's. And he was in the 100 kg with me, but his body weight was actually quite light. So that's why I have him in the 93, because his actual body weight was closer to 200. But he really surprised me. He and I tied on the Raptor handle, and his limiting factor was his back. So his hands are strong, but his deadlift is not very strong, or not strong yet. So limited information, but we know, although he hasn't competed, we know that if ever he showed up to a contest that had involved grippers and obviously one hand rolling, he's trying to demonstrate that he's not a one-trick pony. I just hope that he does compete more so that we get a bit more information, because right now I'm basing it on his 3 events at the Arnold, so it's hard to know exactly where he should fit in, but that's where I have him for now.
No, like I said, I think that's accurate. But yeah, he definitely surprised me that year at the Arnold, because it was one of those deals when he first kind of started to compete a little bit more, I guess you could say. Everybody kind of knew him as, he's the gripper guy. He's the gripper guy. And then it's like that second year at the Arnold because he had competed the year before also.
Right.
But at 100 kg with you guys when he was going, you could tell something was different when he got to the rolling handle, and he'd been training a lot more. It looked like arm wrestling, full body movements. It looks like he's definitely changed his training up. And like you said, he's not a one trick pony. He's developing some serious strength. Like I saw him pulling on the Saxon bar the other day, and he's pulling good numbers on a 3-inch Saxon, so it's like he's working on rounding his game out, and I would expect to see him hopefully be more active. But like I said, whatever he competes in, don't sleep on him because he's putting together all the tools to be a problem for pretty much anybody in those weight classes. 7th spot would be Ian Wheat, back up in Canada there. Ian's tough, man. Strong deadlifter. And really has been pretty active in the major competitions too. From what I've seen at least. So he's definitely put in some
definitely the arm lifting ones. Yeah,
he did put in some miles and traveled because I'm not sure specifically where he's located at, but out in the Olympia on the West Coast last year, now down in Florida on the whole other side of the map, and just the Arnold. It's like, he's been at a lot of them. Nick Manns from Indiana in 8th, and he lifted pretty well at Worlds here recently. So another solid performance right there around that. Like I said, some of these weight classes are a little bit off of, from the grip sport to the arm lifting, but for where he falls, he's a strong guy. And then 9 is John Fulber. Now, I feel like with John, it might just be a little bit of inactivity, because I think John being 9th, I don't know. I'd have to see, but I have really yet to see any moment where John hasn't looked freakishly strong.
I mean, his pinch especially. I mean, his Saxon bar is out of this world for his weight. This
but like even this class is tough, but like even at heavy hands, when he pulled the Andrews axle, I think he hit like 338 on the Andrews axle, and I was kind of like, man, I don't know, that's a pretty solid number on that bar, especially for somebody that's weighing in right around 200 pounds.
Right.
So John, I think if he if maybe we just got a little bit more data on him as far as other variety of events, it would be interesting to see. But he's just so calculated and so focused when he's lifting that he really is like a tactician. And I think that anything he trains for, he's going to perform well at. So like I said, not that being 9th on this list is a bad thing. I'm not like, I'm just saying that like, he's another one of those guys, kind of like Yvonne or, whoever. It's like, he's lower on the list, but like I said, throw a Saxon bar in there.
Yeah.
Maybe a couple other handles here. It's like, he could be right there with the best of them.
Yeah.
And then Ryan would be 10th place here out of Saskatchewan. Yep. And he just lifted pretty well a couple weeks ago, also.
Yeah.
Anything to note on the 93, since that's the class you're in for these rankings? Do you have anybody that you view as the biggest threat that's coming after the number 1 spot?
The biggest consistent threat for me is Lucas. He's the guy who's most consistently that I think Devin, Lee, and Tim are more. They have some really, really, really good strengths, but they're not as balanced in the wide array of arm lifting or grip sport lifts. So, but Lucas, his thick bar is always trailing a bit, but he's just so good at so much. So he's the one that I think is my main competition.
All right. And moving on to the men's 105. So this would be 231 pounds and under.
Yep.
And Mike Schimmel. First place. Yep.
So he's coming off a couple of big, like he was top 10. I can't remember his exact position, but very good King Kong. Won his class in Orlando at 110 kg. I competed with him at nationals last year. strong guy. Good results in the Super Series. Yeah, pretty. I would say very well balanced. He's doesn't really have any glaring weaknesses.
Yeah, well, he's had a lot of, like you said, different implements being tested with, from a variety of the single hand stuff in King Kong to the bigger two-handed lifts, in other formats. And he's been right there at the top for all of that. So, if you did like the entire Super Series King Kong and then you did Worlds, like through that event lineup, if there was any kind of weakness, you're going to find out over that many events. So he's definitely proven to be very well rounded and at a very high level, obviously. Right behind him, Ben Helms out of Virginia. So Ben hasn't competed as much, but I think many people are aware of kind of how balanced and how strong he is as well. I mean, that's 105 is really a pretty good, pretty solid class. But like when you look at the top, I mean, you look at those top guys, because I want to mention Zach Ebel as well, and he's in fourth on this, right behind Steve Millard. But God, when you go Mike Schimmel, Ben Helms, Steve Millard, Zach Ebel, I've just seen what these guys can do, and I've seen how they lift, and it is it's just insane. Like I said, it's very tight competition between these this group.
Yeah.
But yeah, Steve Millard in third, and he's, I'm not sure how long he's been running competitions and competing as well, but I mean, he's very well known, very well respected across the grip community, and has been for some time. And like mentioning Zach Ebel in fourth, I mean, he's somebody that I feel like really has kind of like hit his stride recently. Like, okay, don't get me wrong, he was strong before.
Yeah.
But I really feel like heavy hands was almost his like breakout competition.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then now it's almost like he like boosted up a level at heavy hands, and he's like staying there or like higher. Like he's not going back in any way, like no steps backwards. He's shooting up. So it's been really fun and exciting to watch him lift at some of these competitions, because there's just been so much improvement, and he's really been doing so well. Another Canadian lifter, Rob McMurran,
right?
Is that right? Okay, yep.
McMurran, yeah.
And correct me if I'm wrong, is he also a masters lifter?
He is. He's 50. Okay, he's 50 or 51. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. But also like a really big Saxon lift and just well-rounded.
Yeah, that really surprised me. He almost locked out at nationals. He almost locked out 255. Strong.
Yeah. And then sixth place we have Mad Cow. Jason,
he's a guy. If I had to identify one guy who's going to climb soon, he's one of the guys, because he's new to the sport. You can see he's all in right now, and I think he's going to climb.
I would agree. I think the only question mark would be just the depth of events,
right?
If that makes sense. Being newer, you can see that the potential's there.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I don't know, like you said, the less the guys competed, or the less tools they've had to do in competition, you just don't have as much information on them. So you don't, sometimes it's like, you might take 4 or 5 competitions before you really start finding out about somebody and what their game is. So it's hard to judge off of little information, but from the little info we do have, and just seeing his lifts, and like I said, lifting with him at heavy hands also, definitely can see that thick bar is a strength. Definitely can see that there's a lot of potential in the other disciplines, as well. So, like I said, it'll be interesting to see where he goes with the next few competitions he enters, and just kind of see what those events are. That way we can kind of get a better, maybe a better read. 7th place, Cliff Keener out of Ohio, who, and I'm in 8th right behind him. He just got me barely, man, down at Worlds. So that was a tight race. We finished, even like I said, even though these weight classes are a little bit off of the arm lifting side, we just did the Worlds competition, but for 100 kg, it was you in first, Cliff in second, and then me in third. And me and Cliff, looking back at the points, we were like a point and a half or like 1 point separated. So it really probably was the difference in 1 or 2 reps that decided that, you know. So super strong guy, super tough. Like I said, we just lifted, you know, head to head. So yeah, he got me on those events. But yeah, that, like I said, that's a pretty accurate rankings, I would say, all the way down. And that, like I said, that puts me at 8th there. And then if we go to 9th, Adam Cohen out of Minnesota. And one that I want to mention here is Andy Muncie being 10th, because I think Andy has an injury. If Andy's not injured, and if Andy's in his like, if he's like peak Andy and he's really like training, Andy could just as easily be right up with the, you know, top 2 or 3 on this list, because Andy's very strong.
I agree. I mean, he did King Kong. Luckily, there were one-handed lifts, but not necessarily all his better hand, right? So yeah. I know I competed head-to-head with Andy over the summer, and he beat me. He's a strong guy.
Yeah. So with that being said, it was a bicep tear, correct, that Andy had?
I think so, yeah.
Is that accurate? So yeah, we just hope that Andy heals up from that and we can get him back in top form, because like I said, I know how strong he is, and I think he's better than 10th place in that weight class.
Right, absolutely. It's a temporary spot for him.
Yep. So wish Andy speedy recovery. Hopefully he bounces back. Like he probably will. Like I said, I mean, he's always training, he's always doing something. Even when he's injured, he's still competing. So yeah. Any thoughts on 105? Closing thoughts.
I just think as you go up, or 90, 93, 105, 120, I think are the deepest classes right now in North America. But they're exciting classes. So
yeah, and for what it's worth now, I might throw this out there. Not that I have to, not that it matters really. But you mentioned I was at 93 before, and how I kind of bumped up to 105 here recently. I'm probably going to be going back down. I'll probably be at 93 back with everybody there. So I can look forward to mixing it up with all those guys at 93 again. Because like I said, I don't mind lifting at 105 or whatever, but naturally I'm not necessarily, you know, it's 231 and under. I usually hug a little closer to 200 pounds anyway.
Right.
So I'm kind of planning on going back down to that 205 class and seeing what happens there. Because when it comes to grip, I'm not going to lose any strength.
Right.
And I don't know that me just, I don't know, not cutting weight and staying up higher is adding anything major. You know, like I could basically be down a little bit in a weight class and probably still place better, lift better, and I could actually still get stronger and lift more and be at maybe an optimal weight of 205 or so. So, or at least closer to that weight with a smaller cut. So that's kind of something that's in my future plans is to, now I don't know about if it's arm lifting. I don't know about going all the way down to 90 again. I'm kind of over cutting weight a little bit or having to go down to 198. But yeah, with grip sport, the other guys at 93 could expect to probably see me moving down there, eventually. And, like I said, I kind of like that class. Not that I have anything against the guys at 105, but like they said, if it's 93, it's like you, Devin Lee Brown, Tim Butler, Luke Raymond, Clint Ziegler, like these, you know, those are the people I've competed against before, and those are some of the people that I'm kind of chasing after and stuff. So it's always nice to mix them up. But like you said, both those divisions are so stacked.
Yeah,
you're not able. There's no like, oh well, I'll cut weight and it'll be easier. It's like no, it's like there's killers in both class. So
yeah.
And then, like you said, this other class here with the men's 120, same deal. It is shaping up because right here we have pretty much a list of about half what we would probably label as veterans in the sport. And then the other half is kind of like new lifters, but they're just extremely strong and have done very well.
Yeah.
So I'm not really familiar with the guy in first place for the men's 120. Do you know who that is?
Yeah, I think I've heard of him. Yeah. I think he lives in Jed. Yeah, rings a bell.
Okay. I'll have to look him up after this and try to see if I can find any footage on him or something. But so yeah, we got Jed in first place for the men's 120. Brad Provic right behind him from Saskatchewan. And those guys are very, very close because I feel like with what was it? I think I could be off on this, but I feel like for the weight class, like did Jed beat him this year on King Kong, but last year Brad beat him in King Kong?
I think so. I think
Something like
correct.
that. But I'm just saying that
Yeah.
they've been fairly close with just at least that competition that just comes to mind. Now there's a lot of other competitions that, maybe Canadian nationals versus US nationals. I don't know what their numbers were, so I can't comment, but and the events are a little different. So you never know. But third being Grant Thompson.
Mm-hmm.
How much info do you have on Grant?
So Grant, big guy, really good thick bar. Like, he's with the top guys in the one hand thick bar stuff. So his King Kong results were quite good, but that's really his best event.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know much beyond that because I think King Kong is his main contest. Maybe he competes once or twice a year, but really King Kong is his annual thing. So, but that's his results across the board are such that I have him ranked third.
Okay. And then fourth, we have John Matchnick.
Yeah.
Like I said, and we've discussed him on the on past episodes as well. It might even have been like Super Series breakdowns or something else, but or it could even been talking about King Kong results, talking about pinch block and other stuff. Because I think at one point he had like a really big pinch block lift or the record. Maybe you mentioned.
Yeah.
So I mean, I see his training footage all the time, and he's another guy that's just very strong, very well rounded. Is kind of a veteran in the game and has just always been kind of right there,
Right.
Fifth would be what I would describe as a newer lifter, Jalen Worley, but newer doesn't necessarily mean that he's not strong, because he's pulled off some pretty big stuff. If we, first year or so of grip, and that's landed him, fifth place on these rankings right now currently. And I know I just saw a post today. He lifted Blobzilla, so he lifted a 65-pound like true Blobzilla, 130 legacy blob, and that was something that he had been addressing. And I spoke to him on the show recently about, he kind of the same thing with Yvonne. He didn't want to be known as a one-trick pony. He was kind of a gripper guy. And then it was like, well, let me start doing all this other stuff. And then he just started putting that same dedication and focus that he was using for the grippers into these other things. He realized, pinch is a weakness of mine. So then he just goes crazy on pinch. And then he does, the Iron Mind, 6-inch lift record for King Kong or for GSI. And then he's lifting Blobzilla, gets his hands on a couple of them, tries it, gets a feel for it, gets some air under it. Then just today pull Blobzilla for a full lockout. So, I think he's only going to be improving as time goes on as well for being a newer lifter. And then Tremaine is beneath him, but now he lifts with you, correct? Or
he's out of Montreal, but he comes to all my contests. Yeah, okay. He's been competing for 1 year, and he's come a long way in that year. Like he went from, I don't know what his overall ranking was in King Kong last year, but beyond 100. And this year I think he was in the top 30, maybe top 25. Like he's definitely coming on strong, and he's very interested. So he's another guy who I expect big things from. He's a bricklayer by trade, so he works with his hands all day. Yeah, I've seen
some posts like that where he's been posting up some like construction type stuff or different things like that, and I'm like, okay. But seventh place, Tim Einstein out of Virginia. Tim is I've had a chance to lift with Tim, and I've seen Tim do some stuff. He's very just a strong dude overall. Probably more of a I don't want to box anybody in a corner, but more of a thick bar specialist. He kind of specializes in the thick bar. There's maybe a couple of deficits that if he kind of rounded them out, he could contend a little bit higher on the list. But right now, as it stands, I would say that biggest strength would be thick bar. And if he could just make some adjustments on some of these other implements and other disciplines, like I said, he could give anybody problems, because I've seen the guy lift a lot of stuff that no one can. I mean, he's strong.
Yeah.
Eighth place or eighth ranking would be Tyler Olson from Saskatchewan. Ninth being Tom McClure from North Carolina, and then 10 representing Team Ohio, Mike Saffel. But yeah, any comments on 8, 9, and 10 there?
Not really. I don't know really anything about Tyler, but he's posted some good results recently.
Okay.
And Mike came off a really good performance at Worlds. So
Mike lifted real well.
Yeah.
I had Tom here. I thought that was probably the reason that maybe Tom was ranked above Mike, was maybe due to the King Kong performance, because I think Tom placed higher than Mike at King Kong.
Right.
And because I took Tom lifted at my venue, but then I got to see Mike lift at Worlds, and Mike really performed well. So maybe it's just the head-to-head aspect there, where they lifted in the same competition on the same implements, and one came out on top.
Yeah, and
it's tough to say.
Mike had a really good, very good at the ground for the clock. So I think, or the Group Genie Hilt or whatever. So I think that really is why, that is the main thing that made him get such a good result at the Worlds, is that it's just a 3-event contest, right? So it's I try to consider as much as I can, and I feel Tom has a slight edge right now, but that's up for debate.
Okay. Yeah, we'll have to get everybody in the comments.
Yeah.
Like I said, I just want to see how everybody else ranks stuff. If we go men's 120 plus, we have, let me see. Okay. So going down the list, Carl, ranked number one.
I think is not many people would argue that he's not number one. I think he's clearly established that he's the number one guy right now in this class. Yeah,
and anybody that's gone head to head with him, I mean, I would almost venture to say that everybody underneath him on this list, at some point in time, has probably lifted with him or been on the same stage as him, and they've gone head to head. So that wouldn't be as much of a debate, and I've seen some of those competitions with some of these people, and Carl seems to put a pretty good gap between him and others. So I don't think there's any dispute in that. Second would be Jason Denji from Ohio.
Super consistent. Won the armlifting Super Series. Won the armlifting Worlds. He's good. He's good. And
he was right there. He pulled a top lift in King Kong for the Crusher this year.
He did, yeah.
And he also he placed 11th in King Kong, I think, right there outside the top 10 for King Kong, I believe.
Something like that.
Very, 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 very close. If it wasn't top 10, it was like 11th or something. So he was kind of right up there in that competition as well. So like you said, just any competition he's doing, he's right there at the top. Then we have AJ in third. I'm saying AJ because, like I said, I don't want to.
Yeah.
If we had Will Giuliani here, he could just like rattle the name off, and it would be real easy for him. But I don't have that skill, so I'm going to say AJ. Then Dave LeBay out of Virginia, and fourth.
So he's another guy who's sort of hard. Should I rank him? Should I not rank him? I mean, he did the Shop Classic, the blob and medley run, the blob medley and the inch bell
run.
Which is,
and he won them both.
He won them both, and it's it's a little different from the contests we're familiar with, but he pops up from time to time, often in those types of settings, but they are contests, and he is winning. Yeah. And I have to go also on. I know is from another contest in years past, so I have a pretty good sense of where he's at normally. So he's the tougher guy to rank. He's clearly strong.
Yeah, I mean. And like I said, there could be maybe an inactivity debate at some point, but I don't think there's a strength debate, because if he shows up to any competition and Carl's not there, there's not a whole lot of guys that are probably looking forward to, going head to head with him. He's He's a threat to anybody. He's strong. Then in the 5 spot, Ode. So
Yeah.
once again, no stranger to big competitions and placing right up there consistently all the time. 6th place, Tristan Hoth. And I was going to ask you, just being a Canadian lifter, how familiar with Tristan are you?
So I've competed in a couple of contests with him. He's in Saskatchewan, but he's a strongman, and I just want to give him a shout out. He just won this past weekend the Magnus. Is it the Magnus for Magnus?
Magnuson Classic? Yeah.
Yeah, he just
Magnus
won that.
Magnuson Classic? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think he got first. I don't know if it's like an open division or what, but I know he won it. So
I'd have to check that out. Yeah, I didn't I didn't realize that. But I was just seeing a bunch of stuff. I haven't had time to actually watch it and get any results from it. But yeah, that's interesting because I had just seen like something about it, but yeah, I didn't have I didn't pick up on the fact that he's on our list here.
yeah,
and that he was also doing that.
He's got like a 450 axle. He's very strong in certain lifts. He doesn't have I don't think he trains the various implements.
Yeah.
The way that the rest of us do, but he's just a really super strong guy. So.
And then behind him in the 7th spot, Justin Clifford.
Yeah.
Who is extremely strong, great deadlifter. Now, I'd have to see. I don't know how active he's been because I feel like that's another guy that's kind of been a little less active, but is always strong.
Yeah, he did. I think he did only once the first stage of the Super Series this year, but he did have strong results. Yeah.
And then if we round out this list, going 8, 9, and 10, we have James Jeffers, Derek Hudson, and Nick Sanders.
Yeah.
And Derek just had a pretty good performance down in Orlando as well.
Yeah, very, very much.
Yeah,
he got second behind Jason. Yeah.
Yep. So that was kind of a big thing for him, I think. And I think that yeah, I mean, this guy, like you said, I mean, really, I know we said that 93, 105, and 120 were stacked, but it's like when you look at this list, it's like I don't know. It's almost essentially once it hits 93, it's just stacked. And that's not to say that 83 wasn't, because like I said, we had that like 4 or 5 person mashup at 83 that I was like, man, this class is tough, but yeah, the bigger weights just seem to have more depth to them. And it's yeah, like I said, there's just nowhere to hide. There's nowhere safe. Everybody's strong, everybody's good. And yeah, so like I said, I think that's pretty good on those rankings. If we do men's overall,
yeah.
And once again, we have Carl in the number 1 spot, which I don't think a lot of people would, once again, aren't going to really debate that. But this is where we get some lighter weight classes kind of jumping up and shaking things up a bit. Jed taking second here. And let me see. Okay, never mind. I just thought somebody had got left off one list, so I was looking at another thing, but no, I was wrong. So Jed would be second place here, and I mean, Jed's probably been one of the guys that's been on the rankings in general, probably about the longest, just over the, always right there.
And the only guy, when I did those historical rankings, he was the only guy who was ranked top 10 overall every single year. So.
Yeah. So no surprise to see Jed right there in second. And him and Jason Dingy usually have some pretty good battles.
Yeah, I mean, those guys.
Back and forth. At least over the years, that's been the case,
Yeah.
Third place, Jason, or I'm saying third place or third spot. It's not really a place. It's a ranking. But in the third spot, Jason Dingy. Now, fourth place with Carter. I have a question on this one because this is men's overall.
Yeah.
Is this just because it's so phenomenal pound for pound, or
he beat all these guys in King Kong. I mean, he got third overall, right? So
okay.
And it's not, that's 4 very different lifts, very strong in all of them. And then I know from what he's done last year, he's strong at a lot of other things too. So
yeah.
I'm not looking. I'm probably going to be facing him at nationals next year. I'm not really looking
Gotcha.
forward to it.
Now, just a bonus question, because I'm just digging for info here.
Yeah.
Because this is where my head goes when I see something like this, because I know we're testing grip strength.
Yeah.
So it is a little bit more maybe hand based than body strength.
All right.
But when I see his name put above Dave LeBay on a list, I know Dave's inactive. I know Dave didn't do King Kong, but I start thinking climber, upper body strength, strong hands, all that.
I see this exactly the same way, same trajectory as Tanner, right? Doesn't have the back strength, doesn't have the full body strength.
Okay.
To do the axle. Okay.
That's what I was going to bring up. Was
right.
have you seen him axle deadlift, or do you have any intel?
He did an axle deadlift last year at nationals. I'd have to check the numbers. I'm thinking like in the 370 range a year and a half ago.
Okay,
which is already
that's
which
still
is already
yeah.
So I don't know how motivated he is going to be to build up that, but I really see Tanner as this is sort of the Tanner of today, right? This is the So yes,
like I said,
I agree.
With him,
although that David would beat him in axle right now and would probably beat him in that type of lift. But all the other little grip sport lifts or all the other things that we do, I think he'd beat Dave in a lot of things.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, I just had to ask, like I said, because I always wondered that about climbers. Sometimes is like you have these other guys that are just strongman backgrounds, other stuff like that. They got the big deadlift, and maybe their challenge is more finding the smaller technical lifts. Yeah. Whereas sometimes you get the climbers and it's like they can kill these technical lifts or single hand things or whatever. And then on the big two-handed lifts, sometimes you realize that they don't have the body strength sometimes. So I just was curious, like I said, with me not being familiar with it, I just was just throwing that out there. Thanks for giving me that insight. And I would say if he's that long ago pulling 370s at that body weight, because that would almost be more than double. More than double his body weight. So if he continues on that path, there's really not even a weakness there. You can't even call that a weakness if he's doing something that basically hardly anyone in grip can even do. There's some guys that do it, but
I have the result actually in front of me. He listed 364.
Okay. Yeah.
And that was likely the first time he ever touched an axle. I don't know for sure.
Yeah. But that's a guy that if he really wanted to could probably work and get over 400-pound axle or get to 400. And if he's at 400-pound axle at his body weight, that's percentage wise, that's up there with about, as good as someone's going to get.
Yeah.
Behind him, in the 5 spot, AJ, 6, Dave LeBay, 7th, Ode Haugen, 8, Tristan Hoth, you in the 9th spot, and then Mike Schimmel right behind you. Anything to kind of add on the men's overall?
As you get down the list, it's quite tight. Like the only reason I'm ahead of Mike, he did better than me in King Kong, but if you compare the lifts, I did better than him at Worlds, and I beat him. The last time it's very close between us two, so that's maybe why I did that order for there.
Yeah.
Not much more to say. Obviously, this list can change very quickly as well. I mean, it's I don't know. It's I'm always feel I'm right on the border. Sometimes I'm 10, sometimes I'm 9, sometimes I'm right off. Mm-hmm. And I know a lot of people. I haven't gotten this in grip, but in arm wrestling, people would say, "Oh, you should do a top 20, top 30, top 40." I'm like, do you have any idea how much work this is?
I'd say leave it at 10. Yeah. I don't even think people would complain if you chopped it down to a top 5, but top 10 is almost like the perfect rankings there. Did you have anybody, this is a random question, do you have anybody that you feel could that maybe isn't on this top 10 list right now, but they're like most likely going to be there in the near future? Do you see somebody that's maybe just on the edge, but they're like really performing well and they could make that jump?
Like Luke is like me. Sometimes he's in the top. Luke is right on the cusp. Ben just has to. Ben is an example of a guy who's. We all know he's super strong. I think he just has to work on his consistency in peaking for contests. You know, he had a great heavy hands. I think he probably underperformed a bit in King Kong because we know he's strong, right? We know he's able to do things. So I think if he maybe improves his consistency on contest day, I think he's going to be top 10, could be even way higher eventually.
Yeah. I think one thing that could help him too is if he just competed a little bit more.
Okay.
Just to get used to it, because I think when you go so long in between competitions, and when I say competitions, not that they don't count, but like if you lift kind of like in smaller multi-venue type things, there's not quite the same pressure to deliver.
Yeah.
So I think with what you're saying about kind of getting into like peaking or having to that pressure, that window, that moment where it's a little bit bigger, there's a stronger people around. I think that it would benefit him to just try to, and it's tough with having recently just having a newborn and stuff not too long ago. So there's good reasons for it. So it's not that Ben is just sitting around and not competing. But if we were to say what's one way that he could probably improve and make that bounce into the top 10 overall, I think if he just competed a little bit more and got familiar with that process and got the experience under his belt, because he has the strength, he has all that. He just needs to go through it a couple times, get another 4 or 5 big competitions, get around, people, and I think everything would take care of itself for him. I really do. So that would be kind of my addition to that. But
I mean, a guy like Jalen, he's clearly climbing as well. So there's other guys who are, if I was to do a 15 or 20, I have an idea of some of the names that would be on there, right? So
So no, I would agree with those. I think those are good choices. And I think some of the other guys, like you said, there's very strong guys that have like specialties in some areas, but they just kind of lack a little bit of well-roundedness, and it's just enough to kind of keep them out of that top 10 overall.
Yeah.
Where if it was just like a certain set of events, they might forever be in the top 10, but because it is a diverse range, they're, just not quite well-rounded enough to stay in there with everybody. Anything else to kind of sum up or add to the rankings? Like I said, I just wanted to kind of cover.
Not really. I hope people enjoy them for what they are. I would love it if it led to more discussions or more debate or more of that. And then also, if you see that you're ranked at any point in the top 8 and you have any, even thinking about coming to the North Americans, I would just register, secure a spot. It's fully refundable. If your plans change, and I'm made aware of it, I think I set the timelines, but if you tell me if your plans change, no problem. I'll refund your $100. But it'd be nice to know that you qualified and you secure a spot, and then you don't have to worry about it. Like, because I will cap if I get, I don't know.
Yeah.
Hopefully I'll be able to accommodate anyone who wants to come. But if I do have to cap it, I have a cap of 50 right now. And we'll see. But I would just say if you're ranked or you're already qualified and you're thinking of coming, I wouldn't hesitate to register sooner than later.
Okay. Well, now, Eric, I'm just going to warn you real quick. If I register late for North Americans and you cap it and you don't let me come up there and lift, you're going to miss out on that Fat Man blob you bought off of me.
All right.
So don't worry. Just to take the pressure off of you, I'll register early so we don't have that problem. I'm just saying, if I was to register late, I might still make it. No, I'm messing with you. But yeah. No, yeah, I think it's important for people to kind of note, as far as where these rankings are, or how do I qualify for a nationals, or how do I qualify for North Americans? It's having that additional piece of information, I think, is really good, on top of this.
And if there's any questions as to why is it that you have to be ranked, or why do you have to qualify for this event? Is it? I'd love to just have it an event that anyone can come to, but I do want it to be very high level. And when it comes to like medley design, it's easier for me to come up with a good medley if I know everyone has a minimum strength level. You know what I mean? It's in terms of I don't have to, because it's hard to do a medley for someone who's unranked in a lightweight class competing against, Jed and it's hard to find a good mix. So, and even just the speed of the contest, so that we're not starting at 100-pound axle and going all the way up to 500. You know what I mean? So I'm trying to keep it at a certain level, so that to keep the contest efficiency in mind, I guess.
Yep. Yeah, makes sense to me. And yeah, like I said, hopefully this clears things up. Not that there was any confusion really, but yeah, just some people might not even be aware of this. So the biggest thing for this episode was I wanted to cover the North American rankings, because a lot of big competitions just wrapped up.
Yeah.
Also wanted to give you a chance to kind of explain it in depth to people who maybe were unaware, and just kind of give credit to everybody. Run down the names, make people aware of this, make people aware of qualifications. And just like I said, this show is really, one of the aspects of it is just trying to be a resource that can relay information out. And hopefully the more we keep putting info out, the bigger these classes grow, the more participation we get, the bigger the sport gets. And, that's been the goal. So
I'm sort of hoping that the rankings could maybe motivate, if somebody was active but hasn't been in the past year or two, and they're like, I'm stronger than that guy. Well, hopefully that'll motivate you to come out and compete and get that ranking. So if you think if you think you deserve to be recognized and you can you can make the list by competing, we'll do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So hopefully we can draw some people out that maybe haven't competed in a while. And like I said, there's several guys that could enter, kind of re-enter the mix. And at any point in time, the rankings could shake up. And we all know that. It's just, you can't get credit for things you haven't done.
Exactly.
So
exactly.
That's what it boils down to. Eric, I thank you for taking the time once again. Like I said, I don't want to put you on the spot and say you're like my official co-host, but you've been on the show so much and you've helped out so much with these different things. You are almost like the second voice of the Grip Show at this point, with all the recaps and the rankings and just your involvement in the sport. So once again, I really thank you for taking the time. And I really want to stress, I want people to put this in the comments. I want people to list their top 10, rank their own weight class. I don't care. I want actual stuff in the comments, not because I'm trying to monetize or like and subscribe and all that. I don't care about that. I just want to actually see discussion on our sport, discussion on the weight classes.
Okay. So I was just going to say that I thank you for this idea. I think it's a great idea to get this rankings show out there, just to let people know what it is. And yeah, I think the timing is good. There aren't too many big contests, or there aren't many contests over the winter. So I think, the rankings probably won't change significantly in the near future. So if you see the list and you want to make plans to compete next year, do it.
All right. So we'll go ahead and we can wrap it up with that. Like I said, drop your own top 10, drop your own rankings in the comments and let us know your thoughts. But other than that, like I said, we wish everybody the best, and hopefully everybody can kind of rebuild up through the winter and get ready for next year's competitions. So, yep, that's it. Like I said, we'll see you guys next episode.
See you later. Thanks.